I'm with Jonathan Feldstein from Genesis 123 Foundation. So, Jonathan, do we have a peace deal or a memorandum of understanding?
Well, I don't think we have a peace deal. Peace implies something that's much more long term, and of course, as we speak today, nobody has seen the actual terms of the deal outside of perhaps senior people in Iran and in the United States. It's very complicated, but I wrote a spoof that's coming out shortly where I refer to peace breaking out in the Middle East. Unfortunately, I don't see that happening. I don't see peace between Iran with anybody. I see this as another way that they are using every effort possible to stay alive and stay in control. And unfortunately, as I read it, as far as from what we know, with capitulation from President Trump and the U.S. administration.
Has Israel and America actually got anywhere? Have we actually achieved anything with this war if we're going to get a peace deal like this now?
So there's a lot of speculation. And I think the only way of knowing what's really been achieved will be to have a conversation 6, 12, and maybe even 24 months or 5 years from now to know what's been achieved. Certainly, we can point to military achievements, to the destruction of all kinds of Iranian and other proxy assets, as well as their leaders. All of that's positive, all of that's important. There's an interesting theory that goes that right now the agreement is being made with people on the inside in Iran who are referred to loosely as reformists. But reformists are the opposite side of the same evil coin. They're not separate from the regime. They're not separate from under the authority of the supreme leader. And so the theory goes is that because the deal, even on Iranian side, can be perceived as bad, that it might in fact be advantageous to have what a quote unquote hardline Iranian position take over, acknowledging that Iran is still not as strong and therefore just putting it on the table that Iran, under the Islamic Republic, whether it's reformists or whether it's hardliners, is not a partner for peace in any sense and cannot and will not keep terms of any agreement that they put their signature to.
I feel that Iran aren't going to hold this. We know that Trump declared a peace deal for Gaza, that Hamas said they were going to lay down their arms. Have we actually seen Hamas lay down their arms? And they are a side of Iran. So is Iran going to actually hand over uranium to America and Israel?
So no, first of all, Hamas has not laid down its arms. Hamas remains largely in control of the parts of Gaza that it has control over. The same with Hezbollah in Lebanon and the Houthis in Yemen and other proxies. So none of those things have happened. There was also an agreement in Lebanon that the Hezbollah was supposed to disarm or be disarmed. And there are parallel conversations right now between Israel and the government of Lebanon, which technically is the authority there, but that's only also on paper. As far as Iran goes and the uranium, it seems to me that they will do everything possible to prevent the handing over of the uranium. And one of the things that's concerning and yet at the same time perhaps hopeful vis-a-vis Iran is that when they formally sign and presumably announce the terms of this agreement, supposedly that begins a 60-day period during which negotiations take place. So we've come to a point where there have been negotiations about when to begin negotiations, which sounds like it should come from a Seinfeld episode, and only at the conclusion of that 60-day period, where, by the way, that's an extension of the ceasefire according to the terms that I've read, to the reports that I've read. It's not a peace deal, it's simply an extension of the ceasefire. So what happens? We're now speaking in the middle of June, July, August, the middle of August into September, when there's no agreement that's been reached. The Iranians are still trying to fight or resist giving over their nuclear materials. In August, let's say September 1st, May is 2 months away from the U.S. midterm, which makes the likelihood of U.S. involvement that much slimmer, I think, at that point. And the Iranians will continue to play that. That's what I believe. I don't see any way that this is a straight capitulation by the Iranian Islamic Republic to the United States or the West or giving up its nuclear material. Certainly, I like to be wrong about that, but I do believe that the bottom line is whatever the terms of this deal are, whether we call it a peace agreement or a memorandum of understanding or a ceasefire, or I don't know what else it can be termed, I don't believe that the Islamic Republic, whether under the influence of hardliners or the influence of reformists, can or will ever uphold the terms of any agreement.
Do we actually know how much uranium Iran has? And how do we know that they're going to hand over everything that they've got? And how do we know that they've not got a secret nuclear facility underground and they're still going to keep working away? Do we have any assurances in this?
That's a question that I've asked multiple times over the years. There are no assurances. They lie as a principle of their extremist Islamic faith. It's called in Arabic taqiyya, lying to infidels. It's not just permitted, it's sanctioned. So we can't trust anything that they say. I think I read, and what is the conventional wisdom is that they have something in the range of 440 kilos of highly enriched uranium, and I believe that highly enriched is somewhere between 60 and 90%, and what they need is 90% in order to create a weapon. But here's the thing: what if the Iranians want to look like nice guys and they provide 400 kilos? Where's the other 40 going to go? Or if they provide 420 kilos, where's the other 20 going to go? That's still enough for a nuclear weapon, and all they need is one nuclear weapon. But beyond that, Paul, the issue that is more concerning, because the reports are the release of $24 billion to fund the Iranian rebuilding. Plus, I think the vice president just said something about $300 billion being invested in Iran. Certainly, they'll siphon off money to continue to build their systems. And even if they give up all of their nuclear material, they have the know how. And they've built this over 50 years, almost 50 years. What's to prevent them from picking another mountain to dig another tunnel and another bunker, even deeper? Now they know what can and can't be hit by American and Israeli weapons, at least the weapons that exist today. What's to prevent them from digging bigger and deeper and just using their know how to start over? It doesn't mean taking 47 more years to create a nuclear weapon. It might mean taking another year, 2 years, or 5 years, because they have the know-how. That's what's deeply concerning for me, is that's why I answered your question. Do we know if we've won, if there's actually victory here? We can't tell, because unless there's a complete capitulation and folding of the Islamic Republic and regime change and a democratic outcome, it's very hard to see anything being a win with these people who have hijacked their own country, much less created so much evil influence throughout the world for the last half century.
Is Trump actually going to be handing over money to Iran? And is there a fear that this money that they do hand over could actually get into the hand of the terrorists by sending weapons to Hamas and Hezbollah and the Houthis? How dangerous is this?
It's very, very dangerous. And yes, there is a immediate fear. There's no reason to believe at all that any rational person can think that if the Iranians were to receive 1 billion, 10 billion, 12 billion, which is a number that's been put out there, 24 billion or 300 billion to rebuild the damage. And by the way, I think most of us probably do want to see a prosperous Iran. I'd be all for investing $300 billion to build Iran up as a peaceful member of the nations. But under its current incarnation, any portion of 12, 24, or $300 billion can be siphoned off and logically will be used to continue to fund their terror proxies. And one of the proof texts, I think, of this is how it appears the Iranians have successfully linked this deal, again, whatever we call it, to Israeli operations in Lebanon, that they've now physically, potentially extended their influence over another entire country that the United States seems to be agreeing to. And that's shocking, dismaying for me as an Israeli, but I'm dismayed for the Lebanese who also have been living under the brutal heel and influence of Hezbollah for so long. So yeah, sure, I think that they're all waiting by their banks, waiting for that money to come pouring in.
And it seems that in Lebanon at the moment, it's quite dangerous for the Israeli soldiers with the new drones that they have. They seem to be a very big threat. Israel's got the Iron Dome, David Sling, and all the technology, but these tiny little drones are actually causing so many problems for Israel.
Yeah, until a few weeks ago, we were seeing an average of a soldier being killed in Lebanon every day, and Israel necessarily having to occupy more territory and finding more Hezbollah bunkers. And yes, these very cheap, very unsophisticated drones are being used very well by the terrorists and creating havoc. And yeah, you're right. We have the Iron Dome and David Sling and Arrow for the missiles and rockets, but we don't yet have a sufficient defensive mechanism to shoot down drones that you and I can barely see with our naked eye until they're right on top of us. So that's a big challenge. And as the father of somebody who's going to be deployed to Lebanon for his third or fourth or fifth round of reserve duty next month, I'm terribly concerned for his well-being and the well-being of all of the soldiers, but also the northern communities as well.
Now, the midterms are coming up. Is Trump feeling the pressure to actually get a deal now, even if it's not a good deal because the midterms are coming up? And does Israel itself feel like they're being thrown under the bus?
I have seen hardly a person in Israel, and I say that to be generous because I want to leave the room for the possibility that maybe someone out there is celebrating this deal. But I haven't seen anyone who's in Israel who thinks this is a good deal. There's speculation about what may be, but no one says these are terms that we have seen so far that are good or enhance our safety. As far as Trump in the midterm, even though he's not on the ballot, certainly he has a direct stake in making sure that Republicans are elected for Congress, for Senate, in various gubernatorial elections across the United States. And one of those litmus tests, because Americans, and I speak as one, live this very comfortable life of having their main worry be about the price of fuel for their car, that's the litmus test. So when the price of oil and therefore the price of gas went up as much as it did in February and March, until recently when it started to go down significantly, that was a very key indicator of dissatisfaction with the Republicans. And while I've never heard anyone say it overtly, certainly it's intuitive that gas prices that were 25 or 50% higher than when President Trump took office doesn't help him in terms of getting Republicans elected. The one hope is that after the midterm, maybe Trump, maybe all of this is part of a plan to give the Trump administration more time, and maybe after the midterm, there might be more of a robust response.
Now, Iranians have been out protesting. Do they feel disappointed today? There's been no regime change. It's been weakened, but nothing's really changed. So do they feel disappointed?
It's a good question. Again, the same reason I don't read Farsi. I'm not on Persian social media, but everything that I've seen is showing disappointment. There was a very good report in the Jerusalem Post this week with a couple of Iranians speaking off the record anonymously. I saw something on social media with dozens of quotes by Iranians about how they're feeling disheartened, let down, thrown under the bus. And the concern is not only by the way, from the president who said to Iranian protesters in January, before the slaughter of tens of thousands of Iranians took place, go take the streets, go take the government institutions, help is on the way. And then help wasn't on the way, and you saw the brutal slaughtering of tens of thousands of people and the injury of hundreds of thousands more. The fear, I think, the legitimate fear in Iran is that this will embolden the government there to continue to conduct all kinds of outrageous abuse, including summary executions without not that the Iranian judicial system can be trusted, but without any judicial system at all.
I imagine that Israel isn't going to stop chasing Hezbollah in Lebanon, and I would imagine that the terrorists would actually head towards Beirut because that seems to be a bit of a red line for Iran. So, is there really going to be any peace? Because we went to bed on Sunday night thinking there might be rockets in the middle of the night. It didn't happen, but something could just flare up at any moment, and it's back to square one again.
You're right, and I read somewhere someone calling into question that if an Israeli attack on a Hezbollah individual or post in Lebanon is the catalyst that triggers an Iranian response, then how good of a deal can this really be anyway? I think for sure that Israel cannot let its guard down, needs to act defensively and aggressively against Hezbollah, against Hamas. If we need to even without U.S. sanction against the Iranian Islamic Republic, as long as that continues to be in existence. But it's a very good observation that I had not considered that you made, that it would make sense for Hezbollah to move most of its operations, or as much as possible, inside Beirut, because you're right, Beirut seems to be that red line as compared to wherever they might be hiding north of the Litani River.
Now, Christians are supposed to pray for peace, but we can't just pray for any kind of peace, a peace deal that's bad. How can Christians pray at the moment in this situation?
Well, for true peace, this is not a. You can call it anything you want. I can say that my shirt is yellow. It's not. It's black. And I can say that today is Thursday. It's not. It's Tuesday. We need to pray for real peace. We need to pray that the government of Lebanon will assert itself, that maybe there can be a true peace deal between Israel and Lebanon, and that means the dissolution of Hezbollah, which the Lebanese are going to have to step up to take a significant responsibility. We need to pray that the Islamic Republic will cease to exist just as soon as possible, because that is a corrupt, evil influence that is not going to change. And look, it's not too late to also pray that President Trump sees that maybe he's being played. And my only hope, and we can pray that this is the kind of string that we're all grasping to that can be redemptive in all of this, is that maybe we are all being played. Maybe indeed this is the most masterful act of public deception in the world, as we're setting up for what might be a very ambitious strike against the Islamic Republic after the midterm election, when President Trump no longer needs to worry about who's going to be elected.
Now, Israelis don't hate the Iranian people. You are Jewish, you have a great relationship with an Iranian working together in your organization. What's your website address for people who'd like to know more about the work that you do?
Sure. Thank you, Paul. So I run the Genesis 123 Foundation. The website is genesis123.co. And the very dear friend of mine who you alluded to, Marzi Amirizadeh, was born in Iran, arrested and sentenced to death because she converted to Christianity while she was a young woman. And now she and I run a fabulous program. You need to join us this year to pick olives here in Israel, up in the Galilee. We call it the Israel's first olive harvest pilgrimage. And that's called Root and Branch, and the website for that is rootandbranchisrael.com.
Well, Jonathan, thank you very much for sharing today.
It's always a delight, Paul. So let's pray that by the next time we get to speak, we have some conclusive, good answers to your important questions.